You're listening to the New Jazz Archive, a collection of stories and sounds about jazz's place in American life. Brought to you by Chateau Chantel Vineyard, Winery, and Bed and Breakfast on Old Mission Peninsula in Traverse City, Michigan. I'm Jeff Haas. If you're just joining us, all hour long today we're continuing our ongoing look at America's great jazz cities with a stop in Detroit. Detroit's a shrinking city. Its population is now well under 1 million people, less than half of what its peak was in the early 50s. But those numbers don't tell the whole story. In recent years, Detroit has experienced something of a mini renaissance as younger people, many of whom grew up in the area, have moved in to take advantage of cheap rent and the vibe of a city that's rewriting its own story on the fly. Jazz drummer Alex Trajano is among these so-called replants. He's got deep roots in the metro area. He grew up in the northern suburb of Troy and attended Wayne State University in downtown Detroit. He's also been part of dozens of projects and bands in the city over the last 2 decades, including his original jazz rock fusion outfit, Blue Dog. This week I talked with him about his return to the city, his impressions of it, and his early years cutting his teeth alongside some of the titans of the Detroit jazz scene. Here's Alex Trajano.
Soon after getting here, starting at Wayne State, I was 19, and then I got really lucky and got to play some gigs, and then from there I started getting phone calls. And I was lucky to be thrown into the fire kind of quick with some people. And, of course, as we all know, that's like a lesson beyond any lesson you could have, is to just be in the moment, on stage, here we go, right now, let's do it, you know.
So paint us a picture of those early gigs. What was it like for you? What was the club? Who were you playing with?
Well, Alvin's was a big one for me. They had a jazz jam session there on Mondays nights. And, you know, you'd walk in there and you'd see Tani Tabal or Jaribu Shahid and Larry Smith. Marcus would be there. And there would just be all these heavyweights, you know. It was so terrifying and so exciting. And it just was like, you're on there going, I want to play with these guys. I want my chance. I want to get up there. And, you know, one day you finally do. You just, you know, it just happens. If you hang around long enough, you're going to get called up on stage. And it's really, you know, sort of scary. And you hope that they're not going to tear you to shreds, basically. But they kind of do. And sometimes it's in a loving way. Every time it's in a loving way, sort of like they're picking you up and they know what they're doing. It's like they're throwing you into the fire and they know you're probably going to get your butt kicked. But you go home and you work on it and you come back the next time and you try to kill, you know. So I remember getting up there and having to do Cherokee at some like tempos unknown, like a tempo that I wasn't qualified to play. And it was so fast. I mean, I felt my arms locking up. It was just horrible. And I was just like, why are you guys trying to kill me right now? But all, you know, all those guys were just so great to watch. And the jazz history in Detroit, you know, seeing Marcus and seeing Griot Galaxy and all these guys that were such huge influences in their own right in this town, you know. And then seeing like the funk bands in Detroit, you know, P-Funk and all the things that really made, not to mention the Motown thing, of course. I didn't even really think of that. I mean, I would go see Pistol Allen play drums, and he would do giant steps in 5. That was his thing. he would crush people. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean in a really good way. Like, get ready. You're going to play giant steps in 5. And it was so funny. And everybody would laugh and have a great time. And everybody would be digging in and playing it. And I had no idea, like, at the time, what his history is in Motown. And there were many other Motown musicians that I would see. I didn't even know who they were, you know, in my early 20s, going to see these guys play. So, and these guys all became, like, teachers to me. So, you know, for me, it was just like that. It was their vibe and their intent that all kind of came into me naturally before I even knew what their significance was.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to Blue Dog days. New York City is calling you at that point.
Yes, I go. Well, I figured, you know, at a certain point, like a lot of people, that I really needed to just be there, you know, for all the reasons that musicians go out there and see what I could get out of it. You know, I had played all the gigs I could play in Detroit, and, you know, it was just more of like a young person's, like, I want to see what else is out there kind of thing. It wasn't that I was like, Detroit sucks or anything like that. It wasn't that at all. So I moved out there. At this point, I'm married, and I have a young child, and we were young and romantic, and we just went there and lived it up for 2 years. And I had a chance to play, and it was just amazing. Just to be in that to feel that energy and to see all of that again. It almost felt like I was in college again. But I got to see a lot of things, and it was really an amazing experience. We ended up leaving because we didn't have any family really there to help us with our child. And as he started getting bigger, our place started getting smaller, and all that thing about growing up with a large family just started calling me. It was just, there was no way I was going to make it there and stay, So as Caleb, his name's Caleb, as soon as he started getting bigger, I really felt that need that we needed to be back with the family. So we left, came back to Detroit. I mean, I joked about it and said I'm returning to the scene of the crime. And here I am. I'm in Midtown in Detroit, and I've been here now for over 2 years, I think. And I work in the city. And now that I live here, I'm participating. I live here, and but basically, yeah. I mean, I'm committed to the city, and I've been following all the things that are going on down here, from urban farming to the Detroit public school system. I spend money in the city, from cultural things to restaurants to clubs to people's private shops like the Bureau of Urban Living or City Bird or Leopold's Books. These are places I like to go to. There's some really creative, energetic, optimistic, smart, passionate people in Detroit doing good things. And it really, for me personally, it feels really good to be, part of that, or to experience it, to support it.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenging parts about living in the city?
Well, the challenging parts about living in the city have never changed. The crime is horrible, and when things happen to you or people you know or people you love, it's horrifying. Nothing too horrible has happened to me, but, my place has been broken into. My neighbors, all of the cars have been smashed into. I mean, you see all that stuff all the time. There's just some stuff in Detroit that needs some work. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I love Detroit, but, Detroit's got a lot of problems. We just had a blizzard here last night. We got, a foot of snow or something like that. And it'll be days before my area is plowed, if at all. There's not really good public transportation. You can't catch a cab here for anything. So there's some things like that are very challenging in the city, and not to mention some of the things that business owners have to go through. That being said, it's also really, really, really exciting. There's so many great things going on at these various institutions, and they don't get lost in the shuffle like they do at bigger cities, which is nice. Mm-hmm. So you can go see a lot of really good things almost every day in Detroit. There's tons of it. There's definitely something here, though, that is really exciting and alluring. I can't describe what it is, but I've had people come here from New York and thought, I love your community. I love the people. I want to move here. And these are people that live in New York. Mm-hmm. And other than you thinking, well, the price of New York is outrageous and they want to get out of here and go somewhere cheap, it's not just that. I mean, there's something really, I don't know what it is. There's something really intoxicating about it. It's something very, you just get pulled into it. There's a vibe here that's real, and that's important. And I think that's the one thing that's going to sustain this town. And I hope that, that can be the basis for whatever the true renaissance of our city is going to be.
Jazz drummer Alex Trajano is a native of the Metro Detroit area. He grew up in Troy and now lives in Midtown near Wayne State University, where he's a recording engineer for WDET, the city's flagship public radio station. I talked with him from the WDET studios. Let's check out a little music now from Alex. From his days with his Detroit-grown jazz rock fusion band, Blue Dog, here's an original tune called Malaise and Funk. You're listening to Stories and Sounds from the New Jazz Archive. Yeah, music from Detroit drummer Alex Trajano. That was one called Malaise and Funk from his 1990s jazz rock fusion band Blue Dog. Alex is a native of Metro Detroit and now lives in Midtown, where he's a drummer and guitarist for projects ranging from straight-ahead jazz to folk rock to psychedelic country music.